Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and today on the show, I'm joined by Kam Dovedi, and he's the founder of Premier Property. And Kam shares his journey in property investment and offers valuable insights on scaling a business, but also on investing in property. And key takeaways include things like prioritizing problem solving for sustainable success, tailoring investment strategies to specific locations, breaking down big goals into daily tasks, understanding that capital is abundant with the right knowledge, and taking calculated risks to protect and invest in your business. And we also discuss Premier Property's competitive edge, effective team management, and lessons learned, including the importance of mentorship and proven systems. And Kam shares his vision for global expansion and for charitable projects. And make sure you don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcast. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting ScaleUp story like Kam, and you can find out how in the show notes below. And you can also find in the show notes a link that Kam has provided for some resources, especially for people listening to ScaleUp Radio. So for now, stay tuned for an episode with Kam packed with actionable insights and inspiration and a real understanding around property and why it's such a great thing to think about investing in. Welcome to ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by Kam Dovedi, who is the creator and founder of Premier Property. So Kam, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. So tell us all about Premier Property. What's it all about?
Well, Premier Property, literally we're property investors and developers. I've been investing and developing for the last 30 years. And because of this, over the last decade, one of our companies is Premier Property Education, who also trains property investors to actually upskill and really do what we've done in a faster and more scalable way, really.
Brilliant. And what's the founding purpose? What's your why? Why did you set it up in the first place?
Well, initially there wasn't a why, because I fumbled into it, if I'm honest with you. And now there is a why, and the why really is, well, the why has changed. The why started off being proving to people that, I wanted to be richer, I wanted to be wealthy, because I come from a poor background, come from a very working class background. The why then changed to, creating financial freedom and a legacy for my children, my family.
Okay.
And then when I reached that, the why now has changed to, well, is that it? Is that all you got? Was it just about the money? Now it's a bit more about, well, why don't, just my view, why don't you assist other people do the same? Because you don't really know anything else apart from this. So get on with it and help them.
Fantastic. Good. And what's the magic about investing in property then?
The magic? Well, the magic is that actually, I love the fact that there's a lot of factors that can usually be negative in the economy, which can actually benefit you as a property investor, which is quite strange, but yeah, very useful. So specifically things like inflation. Inflation, of course, in the economy isn't good for the regular people out there for sure. However, for property investors, if you're borrowing money and that money is actually strangely being eroded when you're buying assets and creating income with those assets, and inflation is helping with that, which is I find quite odd, however very useful. So these things can benefit you, and also the leverage and how you can leverage finance to be able to do more and have a core asset, which is real business. So things like this. So that's really the magic, I would say. And when it comes to taxation, of course, I can't give tax advice. The benefit of the taxation sort of system is that there are many perks that we've got to minimize taxation, and property investing sort of allows us to do that in the UK.
Great. And what's the competitive landscape like for you? What makes you different from other people that are out there, perhaps?
Well, I always like to keep things real. And in terms of when we're sharing with other people, I only really like to share from our grounding on what we're actually doing. And to be fair, people help us as well, because what happens is you end up being more active. Because if you're assisting people, you have to be at the forefront of what you're doing, and you have to be current. So that's really what we do. That's kind of where we are right now.
Okay, excellent. And can you give an idea for people listening as to the stage of the scale up journey? What's the size of your team, for example? What how many people in the business?
Oh, size of the team. So we have in the office. I'm actually doing this from our office right now.
Yeah,
we have just over 20 people, and we also have virtual staff as well, and staff that aren't actually employed to consult for us and do various things. So we're an SME. I would say, or many would say, we're very effective in terms of our output with the input that we actually have in. We have a good output. I'm very lucky. We have a good. My staff, I don't even call them staff. They're my team. They're my family. That's how we treat them. That's how they treat us.
yeah.
So that's how it is. Yeah, we're quite effective, to be fair.
Good. And what have you learned about dealing with people and over that time? Because presumably when you started, it was all about the property itself. But as you've grown and developed, and you've increased the number of people working in a team, what have you learned about dealing with people?
Yeah, dealing with people, what we've got to realize is that we all have different points that we need. There are different buttons that we need pressing, if I could say, yeah. And everyone is different. And what I've found is, speaking to the business owners that are listening here, if you can put somebody into a position which they actually enjoy doing, that work really doesn't become work anymore.
Right.
That for one person can be different to another person. So, for example, my senior analyst, who analyzes all my numbers. I've trained him up over the last 7 years. He started off as one of my students training. 7 years later, he's joined our team because he was very good at finding deals. And to be fair, he's been paid quite a lot by me for finding deals. Yeah. So I asked him to join our team, and he's joined our team. Now he arrives here at 6 a.m. in the morning. I even tried to beat him once and try to get here. He was still here before me. So, he loves the analysis. I mean, he's like a little child in a toy shop when it comes to tools. Yeah. He names a tool. Can I have this one? So yeah, sure, have that. Have this tool. Have that tool. Whatever tools he needs, he gets.
Yeah.
And he just loves what he does. The analysis side of things, really sort of gets his juices flowing.
Excellent.
Whereas for me, I like the result they give us, but I don't actually like the analysis.
Yeah.
I might say, but that if that makes any sense. For me, as you can probably tell, I can talk for England, and I'm much more of a people person. So I love speaking with people, negotiating, and assisting them, and all that kind of stuff. So that everyone's different in their own sort of aspect. So I put my team into places where they will enjoy what they do, and then it's not really a job anymore because it's more like a hobby. They come to work to play, if that makes sense. Yeah. So if you can do that, then you will have a very effective team, mm-hmm. and people seem to then hang around longer as well, is what I find. So you get the best out of them.
Very good, excellent. And why, as a business owner, and hopefully we've got a few people listening that are, why should we consider investing in property with our businesses, for example, potentially?
It's a great question that you asked that. Well, the thing is, alongside property, my business used to be in the rag trade, the garments business, and I had some retail units, and the retail units were performing really well. We ended up with 10 stores across the southeast of England, and lovely shopping centres, huge rents. You can imagine huge service bills and so on. Yeah. And then the market changed, and when the market changed, there was a time when I was £178,000 in credit card debt, because what I did was I tried to fund those rents and those service charges and those rates.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody listening here can relate. The month just comes around so fast. Mm-hmm. And when you got employees to pay, you got your bills to pay, you got to pay everybody. Where do you get the money from? So I tried to be smart. I did my best, but it just wasn't good enough. So I ended up borrowing on my own credit cards. Mm. And there was a time in my life when I was £178,000, like I say, in credit card debts. Luckily, alongside that, I parked my money in property, not really doing it logically, not really thinking of it as a business. It was more something in the background. The rest of the cash, when the business was good, I really pumped it back into the retail stock. I bought more stock, bought more fittings. We did that kind of thing. We worked on the business. However, when the business wasn't there anymore, and that money stopped coming in, luckily I had property to fall back on. So what I'm saying is, to answer your question directly, property is a great fallback plan. It's a great place where you can take your money from your business and allocate it to property. And over time, we all know that as in the UK, property prices so far always tend to move upwards. And now what we do is we flipped it around where we treat property as a business.
Yeah.
So every project that we do, we make sure that we get the return on capital that we've employed back within a time frame. So we end up with properties with none of our own money in it.
Mm-hmm.
While they're still cash flowing, while they're still increasing in value over time. And so it's a great asset, really. I know no other asset or business that really allows us to leverage so much, use tax as an advantage, the tax base according to HMRC, and really to build a real strong business in the background, a real pension, I call it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of the things that we should consider then when we're looking at investing in property?
Yeah, so one of the mistakes people make is they invest in the wrong area for the wrong type of strategy. Many people aren't actually aware of the fact that there are a number of niche strategies. At Premier Property, we have 12 specific strategies, which are very niched. Okay. And each strategy doesn't work in every area across the country. Yeah, it's really about finding that right area for the right strategy. So, for example, we actually have 5 areas. Now, 5 areas are too many areas. You don't need 5 areas. However, right. I have been doing it for a little while. So, and I'm training people, so you'd expect a bit more, wouldn't you? Right. So in these 5 areas, for example, one of our areas is the Northeast. Now, in the Northeast, we buy buy-to-lets, and we buy buy-to-lets below the price of £160,000. The gross yields on those are well over 10% in many cases. So very good yields. Now, in London, conversely, one of our areas is London. Any large city will work in the same way. And in London, we don't do buy-to-lets because the buy-to-lets don't work so well as they do, for example, in the north of the country. Right. So there, what we do is we have planning gain strategies. So, for example, we've got a number of commercial conversions going on right now. Okay. And that works because they create a nice uplift. Yep. So it's about finding the right strategy for the right area. I would say that's one of the key points. Okay.
So really understanding your market really before you get into it and how you're going to bring and add value in that specific area.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. So how do you, obviously you're investing in the property, but you're also helping other people to do this now. So how does the business model work for you? How do you make money?
So how you make money, like I say, foremost is we're property investors and developers. Yep. So we'll make money by buying properties where we end up with none of our capital in it, like what I mentioned. So return on capital employed actually becomes infinite. Secondly, we trade. So we develop property and we sell it on. We also use group structures. Within a group structure, of course, no tax advice. However, in a group structure, what we can do is we can buy property, sell the property to another one of our companies, pay no stamp duty within that group structure, and at the same time, you can minimize capital gains as well.
Okay.
There's a lot to this.
Yeah.
So really, really cool stuff, actually. So, there are ways where we invest and we also trade. Our education business, to be fair, is really I won't say it's a loss leader. We make money from our business. It's a business that's a service. However, the amount of time and effort and heart and soul we put into it, and what's required in the background to actually do it properly, in that time we could be doing even more deals, to be fair. But I love doing it, and I love enjoying the fact that someone like me, what else would I do? I wouldn't know what else to do other than this stuff. So people keep telling me I'm good at this. So in my thin slice of knowledge in property, I assist them with that, and I get paid for a service. However, the property investing and developing is where the money comes from. So it's investing businesses and also having businesses or a business which can actually trade, because you need both. You need some form of business that's going to be able to create income for you for the medium to long term. And you also need a business that's going to help you to create capital as well. Yeah. And if you are doing whatever you're doing, why not train people on that? Because your expertise is so valuable, and you can use that expertise, and you should get paid for your expertise, shouldn't you? Yeah. The way I measure it is according to my time value. So whatever your time value is, you can honor people by asking for a return on capital that they will give you, because they're getting a bigger return, if I'm making some sense.
Okay, good. And how do you mentioned a couple of times that you make sure you get your return in a period of time. What sort of metrics do you look for, and how do you do that?
So in property, it can be quite fast. So most people will buy a property, and many accountants will also say buy a property and it will be a good investment for you for the long term and it will come good in 20 years. Mm-hmm. What we do is we accelerate that process. So we will measure a good deal being where you get all your return on capital employed back to yourself within 36 months.
Okay.
Yeah, a very good deal is where return on capital employed comes back to you within 24 months. And an outstanding deal is where your return, all your capital comes back to you, or your deposit, your stamp duty, or any refurbishment you've done, etc. All of that comes back to you within 12 months. So in this way, you can actually measure how long it takes to get that money back, and it also means that your money is forever green within a time frame. So yes. One of the curses of investors is they run out of money because if you're buying assets, you're buying businesses, mm-hmm. eventually you run out of capital. However, if you measure it like this, then you'll find that you'll always have the funds. You'll always have funds available within time frame, and you can measure and time your business according to how you want to actually accelerate your business. Or if you don't want to accelerate, the time frame that you want to retire or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, and how are we doing this? Is this through adding value and drawing down, remortgaging? What's the basic principles?
Well, there's so many facets to this. So Premier Property, we have something that we call our bar system. So the bar system works in 3 specific parts. So that is you buy well. Yeah. Under the buy well, of course, there's lots of different things like knowing how to negotiate with estate agents, knowing how to get those discounted deals from direct vendors, knowing how to do auctions, for example. So there's all these nuances within this. So how you buy well. Yeah. The second part is how you add value. So one of the ways we add value is the ones where you can add value, of course, is that you can take a property, a tired property, which you renovate and you make into good condition. And that, of course, will add value and increases the value of that property. For example, that's not the only way. That's one other way. Mm-hmm. Another quirky way, for example, can be a tenant that's in situ of a property where the landlord thinks they're a bad tenant. However, actually, in most cases, what we find is they're just a disrespected tenant. So we respect that tenant. Maybe we do the maintenance that's required. Maybe there's some organization that needs to be done. Maybe it's a conversation that just needs to be had. And what I find is, that bad tenant turns into a good tenant, and you've added value in another way to that property. Okay. So just to give you a couple of examples, there's so many others. And then the third part is to then release the seed capital. Now, many people get hung up on refinance. Refinance is just a part of it. So you may have heard of BRR or BRRR or all that kind of stuff. You don't need to become a farmer from the southwest of England, It's my very poor joke there. But, if you're like us, what you can do is you can decide to release the seed capital. Now, how is that different? Well, that's refinancing. And what we've got to factor in, that we've got extra income coming in from the rental. So we add into the equation the net rental income that comes in. And that income is only coming because you actually did something in the first place. Yeah. So when you add in the refinance at a higher value and you add in the net rental income, that will all really accumulate to your return on your capital that you actually employed. So you can measure it against that. So I know I'm saying a lot of things there. I'm sure your listeners can listen back to this if they really want to and go for this again.
Excellent. No, that's given us a really good insight. So, and there's some good lessons there as well to other things we might do. But the lesson in the buying well in the first place, it's often said, isn't it, that the profit is made in the purchase in the first place, but then finding a way to add value and then either refinancing or getting your money out. So yeah, very 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 good. So clearly you absolutely love what you do. I mean, what is it in a nutshell that you love most about what you do?
It's probably not the answer that you're expecting. The money, yes, of course. We have plenty of money with God's grace, and if I'm allowed to say that, and we want more money. The money, though, strangely becomes a byproduct of what we do, our behavior and what we do. So what I actually love doing is I love growing people. I come into work, if you want to call it that, to grow my team. I mean, they probably don't even know this, but that's what I come in to do in different ways.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, entrepreneurs, business people, that sometimes, they're down on their luck, like I was. And for some people, they feel like it's their last chance. For some people, they're just getting started out. They're confused. They don't know where to start. And what I do is, depending on wherever they are in their scenario, I help them myself and my team, we help them to really move forward. And some people are stuck, and we help them to say, look, here there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a practical light at the end of the tunnel, and you can make it work. And I show them practically on the steps on what they can take, and then of course they can choose to take those steps and then make it their own.
Yeah,
that's what I really love about this stuff.
Love it. Great answer.
And you get paid for it.
Of course, it's as a benefit. Yeah,
absolutely.
Good. So, and what we often hear about the ups and downs of the property market. What are the trends at the moment, whether that be in terms of property prices or the cost of borrowing money? What are some of the trends that are going on in the marketplace that might be opportunities or challenges?
So right now, we're all aware, currently we're in a very sort of challenging economic environment. That's the fact. That's where we are right now. However, when it comes to property investing, and we've got to remember, for your listeners, if they're in other types of businesses as well, there's a lot of parallels for business and property. So right now, it's really the time of the entrepreneur to, really jump in, is my view, because there are so many things that are working for you. First of all, the opportunities out there, the first mover advantage where other people out there are scared.
Okay.
And if you look at any recession, you find that the most multi-millionaires are made in a recession. Why is that? Because the normal people, I call them, the regular, guys and girls, they are not entrepreneurs. They're too scared to actually do anything. Entrepreneurs, when you actually, look at the actually what's going on, we find that there is a lot of opportunity. So when it comes to properties right now are undervalued. Now, who comes along and puts a value to a property? Red book valuations, valuers come along and they say, right, this property is worth X amount. On another day, the property will be the same, and they'll come and say, well, it's worth a different amount. Yeah, the property hasn't changed. What's changed is literally the sentiment.
Yeah.
So if you can get into property now, if you can get into a good business that is a tangible business, the key with this is you've got to trust the asset that you're getting into. Yeah. And, I like the fact, property is there because property is a fundamental human need. It's not a company that can go bust. It's not I've got nothing against Bitcoin, but, I don't really know much about it. It's not a Bitcoin thing. It's not a thing. It's not a fad. It's not a tech company. It's somewhere where people have got to live. So, it's a very tangible business when you treat it like a business. So right now, there's a massive demand for that. So not only is our properties right now undervalued, secondly, there's a massive demand. The private renter sector is much in demand. We need to build 300,000 homes year upon year, many of us know. It doesn't matter what government is in. We're around half of that figure right now. And what they're going to do, where they're going to put the people, where they're going to go. Large developers aren't building right now. Interest rates are actually very reasonable when you think about property. When I started, interest rates were 17.5%.
Yeah, I remember those days.
You remember those days? And many people, let's be honest, many people don't remember those days because of the last almost a decade, they haven't seen those types of rates. Or we haven't seen, for a very long time, we haven't seen anywhere near those rates. So what we got right now isn't actually a high interest rate. It's a very reasonable interest rate. So all of these factors, are really helping entrepreneurs, business people to jump into business, and property is a real business. I know no other business that is so tangible as a property business in the UK.
Yeah, very good. Good. And, we mentioned earlier off air, one of the things that we're trying to help people do is to bridge that gap between strategy and execution. Really, it's often a gap. How do you manage that? How do you define the strategy for the business, but also make sure that things get done and you don't fall in that gap? Yeah.
So what I do is I call it, if I may use the phrase of a very technical term, as I light a fire up people's jacksies.
Brilliant.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
So we hold people accountable. We help them a bit more than we should really, but it's okay because people understand that they know what they need to do, but they need to hear it from somebody else. So strategizing is great. And you need that strategy. And then you need a plan, of course. And then what's the point of a plan if you're not going to implement the plan? And then you need to implement the plan. And as you know, Kevin, when you're implementing the plan, there's always going to be nuances, and it's never going to go in a straight line.
Yeah.
So what I always say to my mentees and people that train with us is that your ducks will never be in a row. You have to put them in a row. And in that, with that strategy, with that plan, it's then about actually doing what you need to do. Sometimes that can be quite daunting. So what I tend to do on a daily basis is, for myself as well, right? Sometimes something can look too big. Yeah. So what do? So we're on the way to creating a private equity firm, for example.
Okay.
Now, to create a private equity firm for someone who grew up in East London, and went to a comprehensive school. My parents are immigrants my parents come from India. I was born here. That's quite a big thing.
Yeah.
For someone like me, right? So how do we do it? Well, we just break it down step by step. What do I need to do today? Yeah. Well, actually, what do I need to do over the year? What do I need to do on a quarterly basis? What do I then need to do on a monthly? What do I need to do on a weekly? And then breaking it down to what are my 3 key tasks, the 3 that I actually need to do. Correct. And why am I procrastinating by doing other actions and just making myself feel good where I know I should be doing these 3.
Excellent.
So I always outline these 3 and we work on that. And it's just breaking it down step by step.
Great. And how do you get the rest of the team to also think that way?
Well, like I say, I just continue to light a fire up the Jaxie. In different ways.
That's why you got this great place to work that everybody doesn't feel like coming to work, but that's why he's there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Well, yeah, that's him. Other people, some will come in at 8:30. So I share with you, some of this, right? So, right, the team. We're discussing the team. What we aim to do is we don't really get them to conform to what we want. We're flexible enough to conform to what they want. Okay. So, for example, I mentioned my analyst, Mr. P, as he likes to call himself. So he comes in at 6 a.m. We have Trisha and Jenny, who help with some of the administration. So for them, it's not actually, and Mina as well, for them, it's more of a lifestyle. So for them, it's actually the time they're coming into work for us is their downtime away from their families, which might sound strange. Yeah. However, it's that's how it is, right? And it works around their lifestyle. Nick, for example, who's just become CEO of our company, he's been with me for the last 9 years. So why does he hang around? Well, because when he's got to a level, he likes a challenge. So there's always another challenge. There's another Rubik's cube to work out and so on. So he loves that. So and so on. So other people we have in our team, for example, Ollie and Chris and so on. They like a bit of banter. They like they come in for the social. So I allow them to have a bit of a social throughout the day. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. So the team helps. I don't think I'm answering your original question, but I hope that helps anyway.
Well, that's pretty good. No, we got a mix of giving people the intent, but giving them the freedom to do it in the way that they want to do it, but equally with a level of accountability to make sure that they're actually kept a little bit to account.
Exactly, and that's what I mean by we like to fire up the Jaxie in the way that they want it.
Yeah. Nice. Good.
Yeah.
So that helps us get a view of how things work. What if you look back over the years, what are some of the things you'd say you've got right, that's helped to contribute to the success of where you are now?
That's a very interesting question. I would say one of the key parts about business, and definitely property, is consistency.
Okay.
And tenacity. 50% of the game is really being consistent and being tenacious. The number of times that people have said to me, "Oh, there's no way you can do that," or "You can't do that," or "That's not possible," or "That's impossible."
Yeah.
Those phrases, they become a bit of a red rag to a bull, because you always overcome those. Now, when I ever hear someone say, "You can't do that," it's like, well, let me show you. Yes, you can. You always can. Mm-hmm. Sometimes sometimes if we have an open conversation, sometimes professionals will say that, "You can't do that." It's usually the case that the professional hasn't actually looked at what can be done, or they may not be aware of what can be done. So it's not always necessarily kind of. So tenacity being tenacious, just keeping on, not taking no for an answer. And we could think of many of the greats, can't we? Where they've had so many no's until they've got a yes and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There is some of that. And the consistency is really important. Now, that's easy to say. How do you keep consistent and how do you stay tenacious? Well, you've got to have a strong why. You've got to have a strong reason for why you're doing it, whatever your reason is. Maybe your reason, like me, is the fact that you want to prove this to people, because that's what it used to be for me, being honest.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of, well, I want to be a millionaire. And then when I become a millionaire, it was like, okay, great. So well, what's next then? So I made my money. Then it's about, okay, well, let's get the house paid off, get some security in place for the family, that kind of thing. And then it's like, well, what's next? And then it's like, well, I haven't built a hospital for charity yet. I'm playing too small. And then I was speaking to someone who's actually built some hospitals, and he said, I've built 217. Why don't you? So that was a bit of a verbal slap in my own face, because I was thinking, well, I want to build a hospital. Look at me, a big man in a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, I've built 217. So it's like, well, what's the matter with you? Next level. So, there's always another level, is what I'm finding. So you just got to keep tenacious. You got to have that why, your reasoning, your own personal, I would suggest your selfish why for why you're doing this. And if you can keep that, in light, then it will keep you moving forward. Keep you moving forward. They're the key, I would say.
Good. And when you look back, what things might you have done differently? What have you learned? What things maybe did you not get right? And that with a bit of a do-over, you might do differently.
Oh, there's so many, Kevin. There's so many things. Well, first of all, it's about finding the right people. If you can find the right people who have done what you want to do, or what you want to achieve, that's half of the battle. I think you won. So, I would look for people where, they've done what you want to be doing. You could call them mentors or trusted guides or consultants, or, people that have gone through that. If you can find those people, they will really help you to fast track your journey. That's for sure. Also, find a system that is proven, that somebody else has already developed, which you can just follow. For example, my son's a doctor by profession. Okay. However, he's been property investing since he was the age of 12. He used to do all my analysis at the age of 12. And what I've learned is that, a child doesn't really question anything. They just do what you ask them to do, with a system. And that's why they get results. He's got his own portfolio and so on. So a system that's proven that anyone can follow really helps. And then, of course, make it your own. That helps as well. And the third one I would say is mistake in terms of mistakes. So I didn't have that either. The third one is, I used to think you need a lot of money to get into business and to get into property. I need a lot of my own money. The truth is, money, I now realize, infiltrating the wealthy world, coming from a poor background, is that money is so abundant. People with money have a big problem because they want to invest it in the right place. Nobody wants to lose it. They want to put it somewhere safely and correctly. And they're only going to give it to someone who's actually, knowing what to do, or they've learned what to do, or can show that they know what to do. So the money I used to think was a big thing. Finding money. I realize now that money is abundant. So that would be my top three, I would say. There's loads more, but we haven't got enough time for all my mistakes that I made.
Yeah, and equally, if you were asked me the same question as well, I think we could probably both share mistakes for quite a long time. So what about specific to buying properties? I mean, have all the properties that you've bought worked out brilliantly?
Not necessarily. I would say we have a very good success rate, well over 99%.
Okay.
We measure everything. The ones that, so these are things where what I've done is I've tried things, I've tested things.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm doing anything that's is a risk, is a large risk, it's always a calculated risk.
Okay.
And by the way, it's okay to take calculated risks. It's okay to take risks. You've got to test things, right? Yeah. So there's a bit of a rule to that as well. So I will only test something, or I will only risk the capital, which is 1/3 of your profit potential for your year coming up.
Okay.
Or if you've got a proven track record of your previous year, then take that 1/3 of profit.
Yeah.
And that, if you really want to risk something and test something, which is a bit outrageous and out there, well, then you can do that. Well, what's the worst that can happen? You lose 1/3 of your profit.
Mm-hmm.
But you still be financially alive and you still be in business.
Yeah.
So things I've tested, for example, in small towns, I've tested creating flats out of houses, which I found you can do, but you find that the end value isn't worth the amount of money that you spent on the conversion. Right. But you only find that out at the end, right? So that's the learning there, for example.
Yeah.
Things like that. Getting into joint ventures with people that you haven't got to know yet.
Mm.
That's another big mistake. We only now do joint ventures with people that we get to know within the time frame. Because you want an easy life, you want an easy person, you want someone that's amicable rather than just the money.
Yeah.
So that's a couple then.
Yeah, very good, brilliant. And what frustrates you the most? I mean, you obviously like giving people a bit of a kick up the jacksie or whatever. But what frustrates you?
What really frustrates me is people with a lot of potential.
Okay. Who
are not taking that potential to the level that they can. And sometimes they can't see it. I see it in them. I see the potential, and they got to give themselves a chance. You got to give yourself a chance, and that I find really frustrating, because they tell themselves things like, "Oh, he can do it, but I can't." Well, why can't you do it? You can do it the same as anybody else.
Yeah.
Or okay, they've had bad experiences in the past. But not everyone's going to be the same. Your situation isn't going to be the same every single time. There's going to be different parameters and combinations. And you've got to give yourself a chance. And I find that really frustrating, Kevin, that the fact that, quite annoying that. It's like, well, what's the matter with you? Don't you get it? That this is really good. Come on, jump in, do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of scenario.
Very good, excellent. So you've talked a little bit about this already, but what's the legacy that you want to leave behind, Kam?
Legacy I want to leave behind. The legacy I want to leave behind. My life is of service, I've realized. Or I don't want to be arrogant enough to say that's what I think it should be. That's what I feel it should be. I think that I might be wrong, I might be right. My life is of service, and I think I'm just going to live serving, really. Now, that's different to being a servant, yeah? Being of service. Yeah. So in business, what do? In a real business, you're always solving a problem. If you're just focusing on the money, your business is not going to last. If you are focusing on solving a problem, think of anyone. So Richard Branson, all these various Virgin businesses. Now, what did he do every single time? Solving a problem. Any entrepreneur of any scale, they're always solving a problem. Amazon, you name it, whatever it is. So if you can focus on solving that problem and being of service is what I call it, well, then your business is going to last. Your money will just follow you. I think that's the legacy that maybe people will remember me or not remember me. Doesn't really matter, but I did my bit.
Okay, brilliant. And what's the next 5 years hold for you? If we're sitting here in 5 years' time having a catch up, what does success look like for you?
Success is okay. So there's different stages, right? So success was, I want to get out of debt. I want to get back to zero. That was a success first of all. When I was in credit card debt, the next success was I want to be a millionaire. Next success is, creating a legacy for my family. Next success is, like I say, I haven't built a hospital for charity. That'll be great. And we're already the leading providers of property education in the UK. Yeah. If we could be the leading providers of property education in the world for the UK, that'd be a success. The more people we can assist, the better it is, right?
Excellent, absolutely.
Things like that, yeah.
Yeah, good. And what might get in the way of that?
Myself. It's only yourself that ever gets in the way.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah. Perfect. Good. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation, Kam. I've learned a lot. You've inspired me, and I'm sure that those listening as well, you will have done that. Are you up for a couple of quick fire questions before we close?
Yeah, sure, Kevin, of course.
Good. So I think I know what this answer might be, but if you were to go back to your younger self, what advice would you give the young Kam?
Give yourself a chance, believe in yourself, just do it faster, find people who have done what you're going to do, whatever way you can, grab them with their permission and learn from them and do what it takes.
Brilliant. Obviously you run your own training courses in property. Any books or podcasts that you'd recommend or other learning resources to entrepreneurs?
Yeah, for sure. I like reading autobiographies from billionaires. Millionaires usually make their money and then lose it. If you check out the stats. So I really hope we're not one of those. So I like to learn from billionaires. Billionaires tend to hold and keep their money. Yeah. So one of the books that I recommend is from Sam Zell, one of the largest investors in the world, called "Am I Being Subtle?" You learn a lot from that.
Brilliant. Good. I'll look that one up. And you mentioned tools, and with your guy that really likes the analysis and things like that, you know, what sort of tools or bits of tech or apps would you recommend to other entrepreneurs, or do you find really useful?
In terms of property related,
potentially, or any apps or bits of tech really.
Okay, so there's a number of these around. There's one of them that we use, which is called Asana.
Okay. Yeah.
ASANA.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well.
So it's for your listeners, have a look at that one. It can be a bit of a beast. We use it for all of our team. Even I use it in a very simplistic format, though. Very useful tools. There's so many facets to that. So it's kind of like a to-do list with project management in there, which you can delegate to other people as well. There's lots to it. Really will help you get organized and systemized. That's a really good tool.
Very good. And you mentioned Sam Zell already. I always ask, you know, who would you say has had the most influence on you as a business leader? Would it be Sam, or would there be someone else?
The biggest influence, I would say, is my grandmother, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's not around anymore. She was the most strongest willed person I have ever met in my life. I still haven't met anybody like her. You know, she brought me up because my mum was always working, and she'd tell, you know, I'd come home and mention a problem, and she'd tell me one of her problems that she had in her life, and I'd think, I got no problem.
Yeah.
You know, very straight talking, heart of gold. Yeah.
Great.
Miss her a lot. Anyway. Yeah.
Good. No, excellent. No, very good. And I always ask, you know, what have you found is maybe for your training courses, but what's your most successful marketing tactic? What works for you?
The best tool for marketing really is the long haul, organic, being authentic, and just delivering what you promise.
Yeah.
It's quite shocking because you know, there are a lot of people that can sell stuff and then they don't deliver. So if you can be that person, that business that actually delivers what you've promised, you set yourself head and shoulders above anybody else. Now that might sound, you know, really simple, yet it's so effective.
Yeah.
And if you can't deliver it, don't promise it. Promise just what you deliver.
Yeah.
And then organically, people will, your client base becomes, you know, your best fans. They in fact become a walking advert for you. They walk around saying how great this is, how wonderful this is. You know, I trained with such and such. We trained with Premier Property, and look at me now, and I've done this and I've done that. And they sound like it's like a paid advert that you haven't paid.
Yeah, yeah.
So the authenticity, just being authentic. In business, effort is required. You know, we have to put effort in. The thing is, everybody's putting effort in. They might just be putting effort into different things. You know, just put it into your business. And be authentic and deliver. That's what I would say.
Excellent. Yeah, great advice. Good. Well, Kam, I've had a great time talking with you. Really inspirational. Thank you very much. If people would like to get hold of you or find out more about Premier Property, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've got a number of tools for information. So if you're interested in property and you want to join us in some shape and form, we've got a nice little bundle for you as we're here. There's a link that you can go to where you can actually download a whole ebook library, get a couple of really good networking tickets to some of our networking property events. Okay. And also there's some real life case studies and videos that you can enjoy, learn from, and get inspired by. I've got a link here if I can just read it out.
And you can, if it's a short one, and we can put it in the show notes. Oh,
yeah, sure. Okay, so it's a short one, which is bit.ly/Premier, Premier 992.
Brilliant.
That's it, really.
Yeah, good. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. But that's fantastic. So, Kam Dovedi, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.